in this lesson we are going to graph these inequalities, right? So we are going to indicate the shaded portions simultaneously by giving these inequalities. So this is our two variables of inequality. Is that okay? So let's see how to do that step by step, right? So how to draw the first line, where to shade, and so on and so forth. Now let's have a look at the question. If you are on this channel for some time now, you may know how to go about these things by checking our shorts, right? So maybe I will leave a link or a playlist in the description below for you to have a look at it, so that you can have a clear understanding of how to deal with some questions like this. And if you are new here, by the end of the video, you may subscribe to the channel so that you can see more content like this. Now your first step in solving questions that goes like this in two variables in inequalities here is that you have to change this inequality here to equal to sign, right? So here from the first part here, we are going to have 2x minus y plus 4 equal to, right? So instead of greater than or equal to, plus 4, right? So you have plus 4 here before the equal to sign. So we have a plus 4 and then equal to 0, right? So that's very important, equal to. So that's the first step. Why are we doing this? We are doing this thing because maybe dealing with the inequality may be something tedious or very difficult in some cases. So by with the equal to sign, that is something easy that we know how to handle. Now once you change whatever inequalities that we are having to equal to sign, now it's your duty to determine 2 points, right? So what I mean by the 2 points here is that we know that for you to draw any line that goes like you must have start from somewhere and then and also end or somewhere, right? So that's why we need these 2 points. So just after the equal to sign here, we are going to find some 2 points. So how do you determine the 2 points here? Once again, this thing can be let's say this is that's why I say if you're new here, you must subscribe to the channel, right? If you're already here, you know how I describe this thing in our previous videos, right? So let's say this is just an iPhone, right? So maybe let's say in some cases this the X here, so an iPhone, and then we have our Y to be, let's say should that be a charger or maybe AirPod? So maybe let's say AirPod, right? So AirPod, right? Let's say this is an AirPod, so we have an iPhone and an AirPod. So together with these equations here means that two of the was iPhone and then minus the AirPod there, and then this is just something like a gift, right? So a gift, this thing can be just, so plus 4 can just be a gift that that shop is just giving you up. Is that okay? So a gift like this, and then everything here must be equal to 0. Is that okay? So everything, you are not paying anything at the end if you're able to satisfy this equation. Yes, that's congratulations for you if you fall within this category, right? Okay, perfect. Now why are we doing this? We are doing this thing because we want to determine our points. Now since these two people are being inside one equation, if you want to determine the value or the price of the iPhone here, then you must assume that this guy doesn't exist, right? So what I mean by that here is that for us to find the first point is that we can say that when our x here is equal to 0, so what it means that we assume that the price of the iPhone here doesn't exist, right? So if this one is equal to 0, so whatever you see the x within this equation, we are going to put 0 there. So the idea is to find the value, the price of the AirPod here, right? So here from the equation you have 2, so there's x here, right? So this x here is going to be 0, and then minus our y, and then plus 4, everything is equal to 0, right? So here goes to 0, so we have a minus 4 and then plus 4, that is equal to 0, and then at the end we are going to have our y to be equal to, what do you think? That should be 4, right? So that should be 4. If you're having any questions along, make sure that you comment in the comment section below so that I will repeat exactly, or we will help you where you are having the difficulties. Now since we have the y here to be equal to 4, remember we said that the price of the distance was 0, so combining these two people, we are going to have our first point, that is going to be 0 4. Some of you have difficulties in writing this. Always the x first, right? So the x comma y, right? So in this case, the iPhone before what? The AirPod. I don't think if you don't have a phone, how can you use the AirPod, right? So the phone first. So I think this is a very nice example here, right? So the phone first before the AirPod, right? So always for you to write out, you must make sure that you have the x first and then the y follows, right? Okay, that is a very nice point here. So that is one point. So the same procedure also goes for the second part, right? So here we can say that when what y equal to 0. So what are we going to do here? We have 2x minus 0 and then plus 4, that is equal to 0. We are just replacing this y here by what? By 0, right? So here we have the 2x and then this guy also plus 4, that is equal to 0. So you have 2x, that is equal to negative 4, right? So divide both sides by 2, so you are going to have your x to be equal to negative 2. So combining this and this one, so we are going to have, so which point is that? I guess you should pause the video and write a point down. Okay, so thanks for trying, right? So always the x first, so you have a negative 2 comma 1 comma 0. So these are the 2 points that we have now from the first equation, right? So this is 1 point, and then this is also another point. So with your plane, so what I mean by the plane here is that you should have your coordinate plane, right? So you should have your plane, a very nice plane here. So let me see, I want to use a small board for today, right? So I can clean or wipe this part here. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to comment in the comment section below. So now for each of these inequalities here, we are going to have 2 points before you can draw the line. So make sure that you stay here to the end and see exactly how we can solve these two people, right? So remember, these are in just one variable. So how do you draw the line to these two people here? So this is my plane, right? So this is a rough sketch. Make sure that you don't do this thing and any text or exam, right? So make sure you are using a straight rule. If you have a graph, that is okay. So I believe that you'll be provided with some graphs for you to have a straight line, right? So now with the points here, we have what the first one was 0 4. Now remember, this line here, the line from left to right is always the x, right? So from left to right is always the x here. So that should be our iPhone, right? So this line here from here, that should be our iPhone. So from top to down here, that is going to be our y. So remember that. Now if you want to plot a point, once earlier on I said that the first point here is for the x and then followed by the y. So 0 4. So 0 here, 0 on the x, yeah, so 0 here, and then 4, you go straight, you go up and down. Once you stand on the first point, don't deviate by going this way or going this way or coming down. On the first point here, which is the 0, or maybe first value here, which is the 0, and then you go straight to the next line, that is a 4. So you have to go up or you may go down if it is a negative. So in our case here, that's the positive, so we are going top straight. So locate our 4 here, right? So this is what our first point. Is that okay? So that's the first point. So locating the second one, we have a negative 2 comma 0. So negative 2 comma 0. Where is the negative 2? So negative 2 on the x, always on the x. So stand here, and then before you move up or down for the 0, 0 is still at where I am, right? So here's the line 0. So 0 is still here. So this is my first one, my first 2 points. Now what are you going to do? We are going to join these two people to have our first line, right? So this is our first line, straight like this. Is that okay? So that is just the first line that we are having. Now that you have this first line here, the key here, or the question you are going to ask yourself here, is that which side am I going to shade, right? So which side are you going to shade? The top here, right? Or you are going to shade it down here? Is that okay? So let's see how to do that. So before you can determine the side that you can shade, you are going to check, right? So that is what you go to the workshop and go and check that. So how do you check? You check by picking anybody that is below the line. So this is the line here. So anybody that is below the line. So what I mean by the below here, we are going to pick a point, right? So point here, I can go for 0 0. So you can see that 0 0 is below this line. So the point 0 0 is here, right? Someone can go for 2 0, 3 0, 1 0, or maybe 3 2, or maybe 3 1, right? So provided that that point is below this line, right? So we are going to pick anybody, or what I mean by anybody here, that is the point, right? So picking a point below here and check if that satisfies the inequality. So what I mean by that is that in my case, I'm going for 0 0, right? So 0 0, we are going to pick this 0 0 and plug that inside this inequality to determine whether is it true that if nobody pays for the iPhone and then they didn't pay for the AirPod, are we going to have the value that is going to be greater than or equal to 0? So let's plug that inside that inequality. You have 2 comma 0 and then plus minus, right? So minus 0 and then plus 4. So let's check. So we are going to have 0 here, minus 0 and then plus of 4. So the answer here is going to be 4. Of course 4 is greater than or equal to 0. Is that okay? So this is so correct. Does it make sense? That is the inequality here. So if that is the case, it means that we are going to shade the value that is below the line, right? So down here, that is where we are going to shade. Remember, we didn't pick the point here, right? So we are going this way, right? Is that okay? So I will advise you that don't shade beyond, right? Is that okay? So the key here is that we have more than necessary inequality. So we are going to find particular region that we are going to shade at the end. But for this particular line, this is where we are going to shade. We are going to shade it down here. So you don't need to go to the up here again, since there's a point here that satisfiable that inequality. So this is just the same procedure that we are going to use in solving the rest of the questions that have been given to us. The only way, or the only issue that you have here is at this point, right? So I guess you should pause the video, try this and try this, and come back. Let's finish these two people, right? So congratulations for just trying, right? So we don't care whether you are making mistake or you are not making mistake. And one thing about mathematics is that don't fear of making mistakes. Is that okay? Try and make mistakes as many as possible that you can. So out of the mistake, that is where you are going to learn. Okay, if you fear of making mistake, there's no way you are going to get it correct. Now I have this guy here, that's the x plus or y that is less than equal to 10. Remember what you have to do here. So we are going to change this inequality sign to equal to. Okay, so if our s here that is equal to 0, we are going to have our y to be equal to 10. Right, so straightforward from here. So the point here is going to be 0 comma 10, and then when our y is equal to 0, so we are going to have our x to be equal to 10, right? So this seems easy. So we have the point to be 10 comma 0. So these are the 2 points that we are going to plot on this our plane here, right? So here we have first point, that is the 0 10. So 0, remember we are going up positive, right? So 0 10 here we have our first point here, and then followed by what, 10 0. So 10 0, so 10 here, and then we have a 0 here. Okay, so these are the 2 points. So let's join this line. Remember here, I will still advise you to use a rule, a very long rule, of course. Is that okay? So that's also what I was saying earlier on, that if you're able to figure out where to shade, hold on until you are satisfied with what all the inequalities. I visit that this guy goes beyond the first inequality, so you may wipe this guy away, right? So that is just some simple mistake that you have to obey in solving inequalities, so like this. Okay, perfect. So this is our line. So once you have to check which side are we going to shade. Are we going to shade up here, or we are going to shade down here? So by picking the point below this line, right? So below this line, so I may go for, let's say, because I don't want to set a difficult question for myself, I may go for, let's say, I can still go for 0 0. That is true, right? So 0 0 is below this line. So let's go for 0 0, right? So because we are setting questions for ourselves, you don't need to set any difficult questions here. We cannot go for maybe that is okay. Going for 4 2 is okay, right? So 4 2 is still down here. Because me, I prefer to solve the simple one, so I'm going for 0 0. So plugging 0 0 here, right? So you have 0 plus 0 here. That is so can 0 be less than or equal to 10, right? So sure, 0 is less than or equal to 10. Is that okay? So 0 is less than, so meaning that we are going to shade down here. 0 can never be greater than 10. That is something simple you must learn. If you don't have anything, someone who have $10 or equivalent to your cedis or maybe your currency, right? So that person, this thing hold, this inequality hold. So meaning that we are going to shade down here, right? So down here, that is where we are going to shade, right? So maybe this line is just an obvious line, right? So the next line is just an obvious, so maybe I'll just come up with a point and then draw the line, and then you may try that for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you have any question or you want us to help you in particular topic relating to anything about two variables, inequality, or different topic, try and comment in the comment section below, right? For this inequality, the points that we came up with is 0 0 and then 5 5, right? If you have anything different from this point here, just let me hear from you in the comment section once again. So 0 0 will be here, and then we have 5 5. So the point here is 5, and then looking for another 5 here. So this line, right? So 5. Remember, if you stand on a 5, you are going up. Don't bend, right? So don't bend. Don't go this way, don't go this way, don't go that way, don't go straight up or down if it's a negative. So going up here, we have a positive 5, so going straight forward, that is where our 5 is located here, right? So this is the point that we are going to combine together. Does it make sense? So once again, in shading, make sure that you take your time, right? So we don't know where exactly which portion we are going to shade, since we have multiple inequalities here. So I may wipe this guy out, right? So wipe this guy out a little bit, right? Okay, perfect. We are moving forward. So finally, we are on these two guys here. So these are the simple and then somehow stumble people on the inequality, because they don't involve two variables. Here you consider this guy just one variable, right? So we have y that is equal to 2, because we are changing inequality to equal to sign, right? So here, if you have y, just one variable, what are you going to do here? You stand on y, right? So y equal to 2. Where is the line of y? This is the line of y. So there we have 2 here. So this is the 2. Is that okay? So the point here is 2. That the line that you are going to have here is just going to be a very straight line, right? So straight line, that's the horizontal line. So mathematically, that's the meaning, right? So from left to right, like this. You don't need to do anything again, right? So that is just the line. So you do the text here. So remember, we are picking points below this line, right? So this is the line. So going for a point below the line here, y equal to 2. So let's see. So y equal to 2 here. So going for any point 0 0. So of course you are going for just 1 point. Is that okay? Going for 1 point because the variable is just one variable. So going for one variable here. So maybe you may go for the point, that is the 0 0. So we are checking which side to shade. So y is what we are having. So y here is equal to 0. So we are taking this 0 and plug that inside the inequality here. So we replace this y by 0. So 0 can never be greater than or equal to 2, right? So 0 can never be greater than. So meaning that we are not going to shade down here, right? So have you seen that this inequality doesn't hold? So okay, it doesn't hold. So we are not going to shade down here. So meaning that we are going to shade up, right? So shading up here, we already have a boundary here. There's a line here, so we cannot go beyond that line. So we are going to shade this portion, right? So we are going to shade this portion. Is that okay? Okay, so perfect. Now what about the final part? So the final part, this is just the same thing, right? So you have x to be equal to 0. So at the line x equal to 0 here is just here, right? So the line here, x is equal to 0. We are on this line, on this x line, so that is the 0 here. So 0 here, you just be a straight line that goes up like this, just on this line, right? Is that okay? So on this line, that is just the line that the s is equal to 0. So the same scenario here, so you have to check which side we are going to shade. So once you determine that, then we are free to go, right? So this is how simple you solve this type of inequality involving two variables, right? So just gradually you arrive at where exactly you are supposed to shade out. So this is where we are going to shade simultaneously. So this is the region that's satisfy the inequality being given to us, right? Now the second part is saying that you should find what the maximum, right? So the maximum for which this guy that is the 10x plus of 5y is the maximum, right? So 10x plus 5y is the maximum. Okay, so giving this to be the maximum, the maximum here, the maximum, for you to determine the values of the maximum here, you have to go for all the vertices, right? So this is what I'm calling the vertices here, this point here, this point here, this point, and then maybe this point here. Is that okay? And then this point here, right? Those are the vertices of this diagram here. So maybe I can give you the vertices here out of let me give you the points here. So maybe according to your graph, that should be a little bit different from mine. So picking these vertices here, so let's say for instance, after solving, let's say, let me go for that is one vertex here. So here we are having what 0 2, so that is, let's say, 0 2, right? So that should be what, one vertex. So if you pick this guy here, you take that and then plug that inside this guy to be the maximum, right? So that is what the question is saying, that this guy is the maximum. We want to determine all the corners, and so let's use that word. So all the corners of this boundary here. So I have one corner to be what, 0 2. So pick this 0 2, plug that into this definition. So that is what 10 comma 0, because our x here is 0, and then plus of 5 2, right? So 5 2, so I'm going to have a 10, right? So that is just 1 1. We want to determine the maximum. Is that okay? So go for the second vertex, right? So vertices here, and then plug that inside this equation. So once we are done with all the vertices, maybe that should be 5, right? So maybe 1 2 3 4 5, right? So that should be 5. Once we plug that into this definition we give it to, the highest among them is going to be the maximum, right? So the highest among, so the one that I saw here had 10, maybe let's say the second one had 20, and then the third one had 5, and so on and so forth. The highest number among these people, that is the maximum. So let me hear your answer in the comment section below. Once again, if you gain some value from this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like the video, share, subscribe to our channel for more contents like this. Thank you for watching.